Hello and welcome! It's been a while, I know. I've been in some kind of weird funk lately, which means that I did not upload my anything to my channel in the past 2 weeks. I did not film anything. I had 2 videos ready, but I did not edit them. Well, what can I say? Life happens. So let's pretend that never happened and that it's not middle of August right now and I'm not filming a July wrap-up. Yes. As you probably know, I don't usually do monthly wrap-ups. I usually go week-by-week basis because I read a lot during a week. Just 1 week or 2 weeks. I call my videos reading progress videos, and I used to post them quite regularly on my channel, but recently with all the traveling back and forth, and I'm talking about the traveling which happened in May and June, and we're in the middle of August, so it shouldn't be really an excuse, but anyway. I sort of got out of habit of making those videos, so I'm right now filming my July wrap-up just because things got away. Enough with excuses and just let's get on with books. And the first book that I read in July probably should be my Bible, like for my whole life, because it is Get Your Shit Together by Sarah Knight. And this is one of those self-development and self-help books that I personally am not very fond of. This is type of the books like non-fiction self-development books, which I absolutely hate on a regular basis. I would have never picked this book up if I did not see it on Victoria Schwab's Twitter, either Twitter or Instagram, and she was reading it, and since I admire her, I was like, well, this title sounds kind of funny, and I like when there is a bit of, you know, some sort of funny, negative thinking / swearing, you know, kind of thing going on. I cannot even explain it. So on a whim, I picked up this book from the library, and the moment I started to read it, I just couldn't put it down. It was a very fast read. It's a rather short book, and it's super funny. It just, even if you're not into the sort of thing, it's one of those very easygoing, funny, pick-me-up books. Essentially, Sarah Knight, this is not her first book, I think it's her second book. And this is both self-development and also her recollections of her own life, how she dealt with certain shit in her life, which I found really inspiring in many ways. So if you are into those sorts of books, definitely check it out. I have a written review on my blog that I'm going to provide the link to down below, and I gave this book 4 stars just because it was such a fun read. Probably not the book that I would personally own, but definitely the book that I might even reread in the future because it was really funny. I was lying on my couch and laughing all the time while I was reading it. So yeah, definitely check this one out. And the next book that I picked up could not be more different from Get Your Shit Together, and that is 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher. I picked it up as audiobook, and I decided to go with audio just because I realized that I probably will not be able to force myself to read it since it is a contemporary novel, especially contemporary YA, which is the genre I find a lot of trouble reading. It's a very difficult genre for me, mostly because it has to have a specific topic that I really need to be invested in that topic to read contemporary. And I've been reading a lot of contemporary YA, probably a bit too much, and that's why for me it was much easier to pick it up as an audiobook. Plus, as you know, the major part of the book is actually audio tapes. You all probably know the subject matter of this book and you know what it deals with, but in short, this is a story of Hannah Baker who commits suicide, but before she does that, she leaves 13 tapes and mails them to people who in some way are connected to her life and to her suicide. I flew through this book mostly because I've been anticipating some sort of mystery or even suspense I felt that this book, the way, especially the first part of it, it was very suspenseful, even though I knew what was going to happen at the very end. I was not spoiled for any twists or turns of this book. I did not know much about this book. I only knew that it dealt with a suicide, it was set in high school, etc. So I did enjoy this book. I would not call it an easy read, obviously, because everything that Hannah Baker goes through is absolutely atrocious, and a lot of things that happen to other characters, it's pretty bad too. And there are a lot of triggers in this book, a lot for suicide, rape, abuse. Oh my god, there are so many, like bullying, there are so many triggers in this book. However, I think it was done pretty well, especially in an audiobook, because the narrator who does Hannah Baker does an amazing job. I really enjoyed it. I did have some problems with the book because I felt that some of the secondary characters were not very well developed. Another main protagonist of the story is Clay, and I also had a feeling as if he was not fully developed as a character. I had a bit of issue with the way parents and adults were portrayed in the story because they're basically non-existent. Anyway, so I have a full review of this audiobook on my blog as well. I'll provide the link down below, and I will also provide the link to Emma's channel. She did a very good review of this book and also TV show. I did not watch the TV show, but I really wanted to read the audiobook for myself, just to kind of make up my mind what I think about it. And then I watched Emma's video, and I think that she does a very good comparison of audiobook to TV show. So if you have not watched the TV show, be aware of spoilers to the TV show per se. Anyway, I give this book 3.5 stars. I did feel that some of the plot twists were kind of obvious and that some of the characters were not very well developed. Nevertheless, I loved Hannah and I enjoyed this book, and I do recommend, if you have not read this book and you're considering to read it, go for audiobook version because it was very well done. So yeah, 3.5 stars. Next, I picked up a graphic novel series called Chimaera by Tyler Ellis. I got it from Hoopla, and I honestly think that nobody ever heard about this graphic novel. I did enjoy it. It doesn't have that many reads on Goodreads, but I did enjoy it, and I gave it a very high rating of 4 stars for every single issue, and there is so far only 5 issues. So I did enjoy it. It's about a group of thieves, all of different alien species / humans, and they get caught in between a very big galactical war between different nations. There are a lot of different alien species in the story. There are a galaxy, there is war, there is a bit of magic, there is like so much stuff happening, and the art is really good. It's in many ways, this graphic novel series reminded me of Saga. And I know what you're going to say, nothing beats Saga, and I agree with that, because Saga is very complex in plot. Chimaera is not very complex in plot. However, it's so much fun and I enjoyed it, and I wish there were more issues, but so far only 5 issues came out, and I believe the last one came out in March of this year, so there is still hope for more. And I got it from Hoopla, like I said, but it's available on Kindle, I believe, so please check it out. I gave 4 stars to every single issue. Next, I continued with Manga series What Did You Eat Yesterday, and I read volumes 3, 4, and 5. This is the series, a slice of life about 2 gay guys who live together, Shiro and Kenji. Shiro is a lawyer in the firm and Kenji is a hairdresser, and basically the whole series is about Shiro going to work and then coming home and cooking dinner. There is so much cooking in the series. It's probably like 80% of manga is just cooking. All Japanese cuisine, mostly Japanese cuisine, all of the like very detailed recipes and instructions how to do things, how to dice vegetables, how to stew, how to do miso soup. Oh my god, every time I pick up this manga, after a couple of pages, I just start salivating because I get so hungry. It's really annoying, and I love it. You know what? It's it's definitely a bit of a different manga from what I'm used to, because whenever there is any sort of homosexual relationship in manga, there is always power imbalance, and this manga doesn't have it, and it's very positive in many ways. However, it still does have a lot of homophobia, and it's just it's so difficult to even talk about this topic, just because this manga is very, like, it's more positive than a regular manga when it comes to depicting the gay relationship. But on the other hand, there is just so much stuff which is not acceptable in a Western society, or is considered discriminatory in a Western society, that obviously I cannot pass any judgment or I cannot make any comments on it. But I just feel that on one hand I'm super happy because this is so positive, but on the other hand I get still really frustrated by things that happen there. Nevertheless, there is no drama, it's just slice of life, it's mostly comedy, and it's just very cute, relaxing manga that I read just between everything else, because it's just so nice and relaxing, and I gave 4 stars to every single volume. Another graphic novel that I read in the month of July was The Encyclopedia of Early Earth by Isabel Greenberg. And this graphic novel was recommended to me by both Russell from Ink and Paper blog and Simon from Savage Reads. I think Russell was particularly vocal on his blog about this graphic novel, and I was like, okay, I need to read it. And when I got it, it was so enormous, and I was like, oh, but there are so many pictures and they're pretty. But unfortunately, I found the story pretty boring. Essentially what the author does is that she took different stories and different myths and even Bible stories about the creation of the earth, about monsters, about creatures and gods and medicine men and old crones, like everything that you can think of, like very stereotypical for fairy tales and fantasy stories. She took it all together and kind of recreated this history of Earth and creation of the world in her own way, which was interesting in some parts, but in other parts it was pretty boring because it was just all so recognizable and so done so many times. For example, the story of the Babylon in like Babylon Tower, how everyone used to speak one language and then gods decided for whatever reason, and in this book there is another reason, they decided to split them up, and suddenly one day everyone started to speak in their own language, and this is how the languages were created, and this is why the tower was never finished, etc, etc. So there are a lot of stories like that. On one hand, I enjoyed it because I liked the humor, and I did enjoy the artwork, but the plot itself was pretty boring. I did not DNF it. I kind of plowed my way through this book, but I gave it only 3 stars. I couldn't really give it any more stars because there were basically no plot for me. It was enjoyable, but not something that I was completely in love with. However, later in my August review, you will see me talking about another book by the same author, which I actually didn't know. When I watched the blogs both by Simon and Russell separately, and they were both recommending those books, I was like, okay, I need to check this one out and I need to check that one out, but I didn't even realize until I actually got them from the library, but that they were by the same author. I know, my brain is weird. I have zero memory when it comes to names. But so overall, I give this book 3 stars. If you like graphic novels and you like some sort of quirky, interesting retellings, definitely check this one out. But for me personally, it was not my favorite. And the last but definitely not least is this play, courtesy of Playwrights Canada Press. This is Black Dog 4 versus the World by Matthew Heide. And I chose this play for the Booktubeathon Readathon, which I absolutely failed at because this was the only book that I read, so I didn't even make a wrap-up for that readathon. And I loved this play. Oh my god, I loved it so much. I read it, it's fairly short. Yeah, it's about 80 pages, and I read most of it while commuting to one of my appointments, and it was so engrossing that I almost missed my stop. I'm just going to read you a synopsis because I think it describes it very well. And it says, The Breakfast Club meets Shirley Jackson in a fusion of live theater and technology that tells a darkly comic but hopeful story of 4 teenage outsiders struggling with death, depression, and the shadow of a black dog. So this is exactly what this story is about. What I loved about this play is there is production notes at the very beginning. So there are notes on staging, there are notes on the text itself, there is also foreword, and I find this play really interesting, first because let's talk about the plot. This is the story about 4 teenagers who meet each other. They all go to the same school, but they meet each other in the detention, which is very reminiscent of the Breakfast Club, and they all are in some way connected to another teenager who committed suicide. So that teenager who's no longer in the picture is called 1, and everyone else is called 2, 3, 4, and 5. There is a shadow of a black dog, and there is a lot of conversation which is going somewhere behind the scenes and is depicted through technology, in particular through the Twitter feed, which is supposed to be broadcasted somewhere on, like, in the background during the play. This play itself is supposed to be very interactive in the sense that the audience is able to send tweets to that Twitter account while being in the audience and watching the play. Nobody's forbidden from using their cell phones. People can engage with that Twitter feed, and that Twitter feed sprouts very interesting, lyrical, and almost like prose poetry. That was the feeling that I got while reading it. So when you see those tweets, it's just, oh god, I loved this play. It's a very difficult play because it deals with mental health, suicide, with a lot of dark stories, being a misfit, being misjudged, being bullied. It's all about teenagers who kind of have to face their own mortality and deal with the suicide. One of the characters, character 2, is actually sister of the deceased boy. Of course, the camera had to stop recording at the very interesting moment. This is a very dark play, and it's dark not only because of the subject matter, because of suicide, mental health, etc., but it's also very dark in the production, at least what I can judge. I'm judging from the production notes, right? So it's supposed to be very dark because there are a lot of things that happen in the dark, and there is only one beam of light that shines at a particular character, and characters kind of like move around the stage. They disappear, then appear again. There is also a screen through which you can kind of see someone trying to get through into the stage. So there's a lot of tension in the story and a lot of darkness, and I had to restart my camera twice and I completely forgot what I was talking about. Anyway, I loved this play. As you can tell, I'm going to do a more in-depth review on my blog. Hopefully it will be up next week. I'm not sure when this video is going to be up, but hopefully my written review will be on my blog by then. So, I love this play. I gave it 5 stars. Even though it is very reminiscent of the Breakfast Club, and definitely in many ways it's not a new story, you can definitely see stereotypes in there, I still loved it freaking much. So thank you so much to Playwrights Canada Press for providing me with this play for review, because I loved it. You know, when I dog ear books, and I have at least 4, I think, pages bookmarked here. If I do that, it means that I really enjoyed it. So watch out for my full review on my blog. Well, this is it, guys. This is all of the books that I read in July. I know this video is coming out too late, but who cares? I had a pretty good reading month in July in spite of the fact that I was not really filming anything, but I did read some books that I really enjoyed. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon. Bye!